Hello and welcome to Full Throttle Television. Today we will be showing you proper service and maintenance techniques on how to keep your four-wheel drive alive. This will not only help in increasing the life of your vehicle, but as well as some preventative maintenance to prevent any damage in the future, as well as any tips and tricks that you may need to learn to where you can increase the life of your parts over a long period of time. So follow along with us today, and we're going to show you exactly what you need to do to service your four-wheel drive vehicles, two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive vehicles, as well as your hubs by doing a proper service maintenance on the transmission, transfer case, rear axle, and front lockout hubs as far as a lube change. First thing you need to do is remove the drain plug. We're currently using a common Toyota 8-inch rear axle. So these have a drain plug located on the very, very bottom of it. Some other ones have a bolt ring, which you can usually locate around through here where you have to remove the rear cover. So you got to remove this rear cover to remove the oil. But on these, they have a drain plug located right here, and we are using a 24mm socket. And we're going to go ahead and remove this plug. Just got to get it loose, and you can take it out by hand. Make sure to keep your drain pan handy. Now you can tell a lot about the oil by the color in which it comes out. This oil currently, since this truck does get wheeled, does have some water in it. It's got a very little bit of water in it, otherwise it should not be this light of a brown color. It's kind of a milkshake consistency. Usually indicates that this has been in some deep water areas, which it has. You can solve that problem by raising your vent tube, which is located on the top of the housing. Once this finishes draining, we're going to go ahead and we're going to fill her up. So that way we can put some fresh oil in this. And this end of the truck will be good to go. 80W90. This is a standard gear lubricant. You need to read your service manual. You can find the information in the front or in the axle section of any factory service manual or any shop manual that you can buy at your local parts store. It'll tell you exactly how many quarts you need to put in your axle, or pints, or however they have it listed, as well as exactly what grade of oil to use. Always follow the recommendations on that. Mine recommends 80W90 in the axle, 75W90 in the transmission and the transfer case. Our rear axle, it was listed in pints. We had to do a little conversion. Since this does have a small leak in the front, it is recommended to go ahead and actually use between 2.5 to 3 quarts. We're going to go ahead and put in 3 quarts of 80W90. Saving tip number 1. Since we're putting in multiple quarts of oil, you only need to cut the tip off of one of the quarts. You can reuse this tip on the multiple bottles so that we don't have to spend the time of cutting them. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the cap on the top of the bottle of oil. This is a seal to prevent leakage and anything else like that while you're transporting it around when you first buy the oil. And what we're going to do is, this particular unit, these are known to have this to seize up on this. I have not got this repaired yet. This particular fill plug is seized in the hole. But being that we're completely draining this and filling this back up to the top, we already know, because we've done the oil change on this before, we already know exactly how much oil this takes before it is up to the fill mark, which the full mark, when you remove these plugs, the full mark is the oil exactly at the bottom edge of the fill hole. You just simply put your finger in the hole, and when you feel it right there at the bottom of the hole at the threads, that means it's full. But being that we've done this before, we're just going to go ahead, seeing as how the fill is plugged, we're going to go ahead and insert it right here into the vent tube. It will still go into the housing like it's supposed to do. This particular housing, the way it is set up, the vent tube does not have any baffles in it. It drains directly into the housing. So this system will be completely full once we add all 3 quarts. Next thing I'm going to show you is how to service a standard manual lockout hub. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these 6 bolts that holds the hub on. Once you have all 6 bolts removed, simply slide the hub out, and you will be looking at the internal and external assemblies of the hub. This is the lockout nub, the selector knob. This will choose between free and lock positions. This is the clutch that locks everything in. You'll notice the spline for the shaft on the inside, as well as the keys on the outside. This only goes in one way. It is very vital that you put this back in the way that it properly fits. The best way to tell that is by the keyways located on the knob itself right here. You put those in these larger, wider slots, and that'll allow the hub to turn its appropriate distance. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this grease in here and on here and prepare for some new grease. Once you have all the grease removed, generously apply the appropriate type of grease for your application. Here I'm using specific grease for axles and joints and so on and so forth for an import. Japanese, domestic, whatever. It's a good multi-purpose grease, typically used for U-joints and lockout hubs and suspension joints. But put a generous amount of grease in there, and then use your finger. Don't be afraid. Use your finger and kind of spread that around inside there. Now remember, this is a very vital part. There's no such thing as, in essence, there's no such thing as too much grease to make this work. Just got to make sure to put a decent amount in there to where everything will stay lubricated and work properly. Once everything's all lubricated in here, real nice and good, just repeat the assembly is the reverse of a removal. Just take and push it back in an appropriate location. Once again, don't be afraid to get a little greasy. Most greases are of a soap compound to where essentially they actually clean up pretty easily. Now that we have a generous amount of grease, we just have to make sure and line up the keyways. Once you have the hub fully assembled, check for proper operation. Then you can turn the knob simply with your hand and make sure that it is locked in, and that you can unlock it, and it moves back to free operation. Once you have it assembled and it's in proper working order, you are finished and you can move on to the other side. This should give you a simple tutorial on how to service the four-wheel drive on your vehicle. It's not that difficult. Something for everybody they can do in their driveway in a matter of a couple hours. So this should help you get started in making your vehicle live a much longer life, as well as making you a more satisfied vehicle owner and more satisfied four-wheeler. It'll also encourage you to get out on trails more often without fear of worn parts or anything, so on and so forth, as long as you keep up on your routine maintenance. Just make sure to follow your recommended service guidelines in your service manuals that you can buy at your local dealership or at the local parts store. Follow them explicitly on when to change the oil, what grade of oil to use, and how much. It'll tell you exactly where your fill plugs are, where your drain plugs are, as well as exactly what type of oil to use for your particular application. Such as mine, it told me I needed to use 80W90 in my axles and 75W90 in my transmission transfer case, as well as a lithium grease for the hubs, as well as the U-joints specifically designed for a Japanese vehicle. So I hope this helps you out and you find your way on the trail sooner than you normally would have. So thanks for stopping by, and happy wheeling.